That's an important corrective that we're hearing from N. Ram in Chennai. He has the advantage of viewing Delhi from the outside, and therefore distance gives him objectivity. Would you accept that polls sometimes mistake or don't identify correctly what he calls the core support for Aam Aadmi, and therefore when it tracks how their vote seems to be diminishing, they're ignoring a core support?
I'll grant Mr. N. Ram that. I would say let's, for the moment, even go away from polls. There's something called common sense. And if you are offering lower electricity tariff and lower water and free water, obviously those people who are attracted to this will definitely be people who are core voters because they tasted it once, literally and metaphorically. Now I would say that amongst those people, if there is a competition for their vote, as indeed there would be between the Aam Aadmi Party and the Congress Party.
Okay.
Now, if the votes are divided, in fact, it goes to the advantage of BJP. If those votes, and these are substantial votes, which is why Aam Aadmi Party is so dismissive of the middle class, because they do not offer the middle class anything, and the middle class is moving away. But I mean, I just on a note which is also a kind of it's a little bit of astrological kind of in that category. The bookies today, I found out, the bookies today the odds are extremely high as far as the Congress Party is concerned. They are high as far as the Aam Aadmi Party is concerned.
And lowest for BJP.
Of course, they are the lowest for BJP. But I would therefore say that Rahul Gandhi's promise of 10 crore jobs in 5 years has been heard and not believed.
Well, that's your impression, once again, I have to say.
Impression.
Let me bring it very quickly, Nirmala Sitharaman. I want to tease you with a question before we actually go to that second part of our poll, which says, how will the Delhi voters vote? And what seat projection does that indicate? Very quickly, as a teaser, tell me, how many seats do you expect to get? And then in a moment's time, our poll will tell you how many our poll says you will actually get. Give me your answer first.
Very difficult to pin on a number today, Karan, because there's still a lot of time for us to campaign. We are pushing our limits and making sure that we'll get the maximum.
Don't be a diplomat. Stick your neck out and tell me, out of 7, how many will you get?
Very difficult today. Give me a few more days, I'll try to give
It's very difficult for you to tell us. It's a lot easier for our poll to indicate. In a moment, I'm going to ask Sanket. Sanket, give us the answers. How will the people of Delhi vote, and what sort of seats will that give the parties?
Absolutely. Should I do that now?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, obviously we all know that in 2009 it was a 7-0 performance, 7 tilted towards the Congress Party. These are the results of our survey. 5 to 7 seats out of 7 could actually go to the BJP. About 2 to perhaps the Aam Aadmi Party. It could also be 0. This is the range. Just to explain to our viewers, this is the range that we are talking about. 5 to 7 is the range for the BJP, 0 to 2 for the Aam Aadmi Party. The worst performing party, according to the Cicero India Today survey, is the Congress Party, which could end up from 7-0 to 0-7, or perhaps at best could retain 1.
What you haven't given us is, of course, the vote share. There it is again. Why don't you explain that to us very quickly?
Absolutely. The second most important aspect is the vote share, the projected vote share of 2014. And this figure in percentage, again, Congress 23%, the BJP a whopping 41% of the pie, the Aam Aadmi Party getting 28, a little above the Congress Party, 5 points above the Congress Party, and the others get about 8%.
Nirmala Sitharaman, you were hesitant, perhaps even deliberately, politically, strategically reluctant to stick your neck out, but there it is. The polls are suggesting that you could end up getting between 5 and 7 seats. And if you're lucky and it comes out on the higher side, that is a clean sweep of all 7 in Delhi. How do you as party spokesperson respond to that possibility?
Well, I'll ideally work for getting 7 out of the 7 seats in Delhi, because I think the country needs a change, and a clear-cut change, and a decisive change. In Delhi, I would work for 7, and we have every expectation that our group and the party at every level is working hard.
And just very quickly, when our poll suggests that you could get between 5 and 7, do you have any doubts about the authenticity of this poll, or are you prepared to underwrite it, corroborate it, and support it in public?
Well, BJP as a party has never said that we don't believe in opinion polls. However, of course, The ground realities are the facts on which we work.
Absolutely. That was, of course, a tongue-in-cheek question, but I'll ask it more realistically of Shazia Ilmi. Shazia Ilmi, I know that you have said a moment ago you don't believe polls. I know that you believe that the poll is underrepresenting what Enram calls the core Aam Aadmi Party support. But on the other hand, the reality that this poll is indicating is that you could have just 2 seats if you're lucky and none at all if you're not. How do you face that prospect?
On the contrary, Mr. Thapar, because I believe that the base support of Aam Aadmi Party has actually expanded, and that's fairly visible. You can see it, it's tangible. A huge chunk of people have joined in the ranks because they now see the winnability of AAP. Unlike earlier, where AAP was a party which was meant to be just a spoiler. Now AAP is being considered a serious contender. Yes, we have many new groups and communities also joining in. So I don't see that happening the way you say it will. And I think
in which case, tell me, how many of the 7 seats, how many of the 7 Delhi seats do you think you'll get? What's your personal estimation?
I would think 4 to 5 out of 7 for sure.
4 to 5.
And I am always conservative as my estimate is concerned. I'm not a true politician, so that's what I believe.
Before I go to Mr. Ram, Nalini, I want to bring you in here, both as a journalist and as someone who lives in Delhi and has her own ear to the ground. Now, one of the findings that Sanket didn't reveal is that 98% of our poll sample say they will definitely vote. And of that 98%, 82% say that they've made up their mind absolutely. Does that indicate A, a very high determination to vote, and B, a very firm conviction of which way they'll vote? And therefore, is there much room thereafter to doubt the indication and the findings that follow?
I don't think so. I don't think that there's now much room. It's only a week. It's only a week to the actual poll in Delhi. I would definitely be, I would say that let's compliment the Election Commission also, because they're making the process very smooth in Delhi.
But we come to the Election Commission later.
I'm just saying.
Stick to my question for
Yeah,
now.
I'm saying they're making, it's the 82% who say they will definitely vote. I'm talking about that because the process is a bit smoother. I would definitely say that both the parties, the BJP and the Aam Aadmi Party, is slightly out of touch with reality. Nirmala ji, who is such a fine spokesperson, says 7. Shazia Ilmi says 5 to whatever.
You don't believe either?
I do not believe either. I'm just going to say...
Very quickly, very quickly. Let me stop you.
BJP,
what do you think they will be the final results for BJP and AAP? A quick answer.
I would say the BJP maybe at about, the lower end of your range, maybe...
5.
Maybe, yeah.
Okay.
Maybe 4 to 5, 4 to 5.
And AAP?
AAP would be about in the range of about 2, maybe.
Ram, one
2
of
to
the
3.
things that emerges when you look at the vote shares, and Sanket elaborated on them fairly interestingly, and if you compare the vote share of our poll with the actual vote share in December last year when the state elections were held, you'll notice that BJP has in 4 months gained 8%. Both Congress and Aam Aadmi have lost roughly 1.5%, and others, that combined category, has lost somewhere close to 5%. Now, in part 1, a moment ago, you felt that Mr. Modi was doing well, but that may not reflect on the party. Now, when I show you the way vote shares have changed and BJP's gained at the expense of everyone else, do you think you want to change your view about the BJP's performance in Delhi? Mr. Ram, can you hear me? Oh, I think...
Why don't you ask me specifically, mention it to me, otherwise, because I don't see anything. I'm in front of a camera and I don't see you.
My apologies.
But anyway,
I was simply pointing this out. You said a moment ago that Mr. Modi was doing extremely well, but that may not reflect on the BJP. Now, when you look at the vote shares, it seems that since December, BJP has gained 8%. Congress and Aam Aadmi have both lost compared to December 1.5%, and others have lost 5%. In other words, everyone has lost and BJP has gained. Therefore, do you think BJP is also gaining, perhaps on the coattails of Mr. Modi, something you were reluctant to accept a moment ago?
No, it is possible, Karan, but I would look very closely at the comparability of the data, the methodology. That are the two exercises comparable? Are they similar? one could be, what is the sample size and so on, because we know, of course, you've done a poll on Delhi, which may be more accurate, but many of the polls are done at the national level, and then they try to break it down to states where it gets very unreliable, particularly seats projections. We know that. So it depends on what kind of the quality of the data and reliability. But if, as you say, there's been an increase in the vote share for the BJP, a substantial increase, it would mean obviously a better harvest of seats. But I again go back to other polls which
let's leave other polls out of it. This is not a competition between other polls and our polls. This is not a competition between us and other channels. We're simply talking about our poll and what our poll indicates. Nirmala Sitharaman, as a BJP spokesperson, to what extent do you believe Delhi is a bellwether for the rest of the country? Or does AAP's special significance to this city and the way it eats into Congress support make Delhi unique?
Well, in a way, it's both. One, Delhi certainly represents the mood of the nation, and largely because of the media coverage and the importance given to Delhi, whole lot of factors which are typical to Delhi also come into play. So, one, it captures the mood. Two, certain uniqueness about Delhi also come into play. There's no there's no benefit in repeating it. But fact of the matter is, Delhi, as regards AAP, is clearly the indicator that states with regional parties which have had an alternative, already do have their own ways in which they respond to a Lok Sabha election, and Delhi's AAP's presence cannot be used to gauge the rest of the country's moods. All over, certainly, there is a mood in favor of BJP and its leadership, and clearly a mood to get this country rid of Congress's rule.
Shahzad Ilmi, as I said a moment ago, the fieldwork for our survey was done on the 27th and 28th of March. This week, Arvind Kejriwal is spending 7 days of intensive campaigning in Delhi. Do you think he can swing the mood of the city around and recapture the support he had in December in 7 days flat?
Well, absolutely. First of all, I don't trust the survey entirely. As Mr. Enran just mentioned, I would like to know about the sample size and how representative it is in terms of categories and classes and representation of slum dwellers as well as middle income groups. But having said that, I would like to in fact contradict you on one point. I think last few days of this inner fighting and the bitterness that was seen and the rancor amongst BJP cadres vis-a-vis ticket selection, and also among the top leadership, and all the hype that has been created around Narendra Modi being busted all across. I think the reverse has happened, in fact. Narendra Modi's popularity has in fact plummeted, and people are beginning to see there is more hype than substance. It is not real.
Let me leave you with that. After all, you are the person in the dock as far as this particular point is concerned.